Good leaders create a vision, articulate the vision, passionately own the vision, and relentlessly drive it to completion. Good evening and welcome. This is Face the Nation. Our topic of discussion today is Sri Lanka's current political climate. Are we in a crisis yet? To discuss all this and more, we've invited three guests to our studios this evening as well. Joining us this evening on the show are Eran Deginege, once social entrepreneur, now advisor to the president; Lihini Fernando, Samang Janabalawege councillor representing the Moratuwa Municipal Council; and also Mr. Lasil De Silva, former secretary of Presifac, well known for its role. Presifac stands for Presidential Commission to Investigate Serious Acts of Fraud and Corruption. Let's start off tonight's show with Lihini Fernando, Samang Janabalawege councillor representing the Moratuwa Municipal Council. Lihini, tomorrow is going to be a big day for the SJB. They are launching a massive protest campaign across Sri Lanka, and they are to be wind up in Colombo. However, the protest itself is riddled with a lot of secrecy. No one knows at what time it's starting. No one knows as to what's going to happen. No one knows where they are going to converge at the end of the day. What is the reason behind this? Is it the fear that the SJB has that the government may disrupt the protest campaign that is supposed to be launched tomorrow?
First and foremost, thank you for having me today, Shamir, and to Face the Nation. Answering your question, so yes, tomorrow is a very important day to the SJB, not just to the SJB, but I think to the citizens of this country, where we come to the roads, not just for an SJB cause, but for a common cause to raise the voice against this injustice, the corrupt government, the malpractices, the corruption, the callous manner in which the country is being governed, against this power crisis, against this shortage of gas to milk powder, basically disrupting the lives of the general public. And I think it is time that not just political parties but everybody gets on the road and express their displeasure in the manner in which this country is being led by the present administration. So whether there is hush-hush about it, obviously the government is, by all means, will try to make sure that they disrupt this protest. Because we see in many instances where how the government has curtailed the right to protest, the right to speak out, the fundamental rights of the individual people of this country. So obviously the government will take all measures to disrupt, but nevertheless the SJB is determined to walk and take it to the streets because it is timely. And the manner in which the government is addressing this present crisis and the irresponsible nature in which how the situation is handled, how they come to the media and speak, and how the irresponsible nature of the ministers, including the finance minister, not being present in parliament to address these concerns is of great concern to the people of this country. And I don't think a government who has come to power obtaining 2/3 majority, having obtained such a vast majority, being given such power by way of a 20th amendment, leading this country in this nature is not acceptable. Because you see, this is like a circle. I mean, it's not just about even if the people go earn their living, even if they do the jobs, but it is being disrupted because there is no fuel, there is no electricity, 7.5-hour power cuts. But the essentials are not there, the basics are not there. How does the government expect the normal citizen to function? And what is their response? And we see the SJB last week, Honorable Harsha De Silva, Iran Vikramaratne, Kabir Hashim went and spoke to the central bank governor and requested him and asked him whether he is going to the IMF. Are they planning on debt restructuring the debt? What is their plan? Because we see they've been printing currency at a rate. And what is the solution? Because then look at their tax policy. When they came back in 2019, they reduced the taxes, and which caused a loss to the country, a loss of 600 billion. And what is the alternative that they have brought in to cover up that gap? Then they went on printing money. Then we had a fertilizer crisis which brought down the crops by 35%. And to curb for that, then they bring the Chinese fertilizer, and then they pay about $6.5 billion US. And presently we don't have dollars in the country even to buy the essentials. People don't have medicine. There is no paper to print the books for the school students. Parents can't send their kids to schools because the school vans are trying to increase the prices. Construction industry is crippling because the cement prices have gone up, and then there is no raw materials in the country. Then there is no food. Where is food security? They claim so much about national security. What is food security? Isn't food security is of paramount importance? So where are we heading as a country?
We'll get back to all that momentarily, Lihini, but I want to focus your attention initially on the protest march that is organized tomorrow.
And we will take to the streets, Shamir, all this. And we invite the general public to come together and to show their displeasure against this government.
So, will the National Freedom Front and representatives of the Pivithuru Helurumaya, namely Uday Gammampila and Vimal Weerawansa, would they join hands with the SJB tomorrow at the rally?
We don't know. They are supposed to have their own rally on a different location. We don't know whether it's a sabotage by the government to divert the people. So we don't know whether they are doing it with a sincere intention or whether it's another ploy by the government. Because, you know, you see all these politicians coming, people like Vimal Weerawansa and Uday Gammampila coming and telling political rhetorics and stories one after the other. Can one believe them?
So the SJB is of the opinion that the sacking of Uday Gammampila as well as Vimal Weerawansa from their portfolios may be a ploy for the future, a political plot or political drama.
Could be. We recently watched the interview that was conducted by your channel, and if you read between the lines of what he's stating, obviously it can be another ploy by the government.
But he's very clear when Vimal Weerawansa was interviewed and even Uday Gammampila was interviewed, it was very clear that they were very disgruntled about the government in power, namely the Minister of Finance, Basil Rajapaksa. Are you still trying to insinuate that this is just a political ploy?
See, if they are all that, they are the ones who voted for the 20th Amendment. They are the ones who promoted bringing Basil Rajapaksa. Now they are being within the government and again criticizing the government. So they are very famous for all these stories coming one after the other. Let's see whether they actually result in significant action. I personally think that it is just another story to divert attention, so that the attention that SJB, the protest against the government, is diverted to a different direction.
What if I say, Lihini, that the SJB is also right now in jitters because two main political parties affiliated to the government is on isolation. They are in government, however, they are not being given positions. They have resigned from their portfolios or fired from their positions in question. In that situation, do you think if there is a future election, the SJB may lose ground, or even parties like the National People's Power may lose ground at a future elections because there are two very formidable political leaders who broke away from the government?
No, I disagree. I think SJB is the alternative government right now. They're not the opposition. I like to say that SJB is the alternative government. SJB is not just about one particular leader. SJB is about a culmination of leaders that can govern this country with principles, with policies, and put Sri Lanka on the right roadmap. That's what SJB is, and that's what SJB stands for, and that's a difference that SJB brings to the table. It's not just, I would say, it's not just a talk shop, but it's a party. There are people who were back in there, Hapalane, who had done certain things, who have performed, who has performed in the finance ministry, who have brought significant changes. So in an SJB government, they will bring the significant changes to get the Sri Lanka on the right roadmap.
Thank you very much, Lihini Fernando, SJB councillor representing the Morotai Municipal Council. I am eagerly waiting to pose more questions to you as the second round begins. So let's wait for that. I now move my attention to Eranda Ginige, once social entrepreneur, now famously known for his role to be the advisor to the president. Can I say that, Eranda?
You've already said it, right?
Right.
But my question is, why are you saying once social entrepreneur?
Because now you have a lot of commitment towards the president to advise him and so on and so forth.
Sure, but people
Right.
can have
Right. Different multiple roles,
right?
absolutely.
People can have multiple
So
commitments.
my first question to you, Aranda, is when you took office as the advisor to the president, given the current dilemma that we are facing right now in the country, what was the very first advice you gave the president?
That's between me and the president, right? I'm not here to share the advice that I give to the president with you.
Yeah. No,
But,
you don't have to.
But let me
Yeah.
sort of come to the whole scenario here. See, Lihini mentioned that the country is facing a lot of difficulty, that people don't have consumable items and all, a long list of things. She went on a rant. But Shamir, the fact is that if you look at the statistics, the numbers, right? Sri Lanka has imported 20 billion worth of imports last year, US dollars, right? Now, how is that possible? If that is the case, then how can you say that people don't have, stuff to consume? In fact, over the last 10 years, Shamir, 2011, 20,000 million, 19,000, 18,000, 19,000, 18,000. In fact, it was during the Yahapalana regime that you imported the lowest over the last 10 years, right? Of course, in 2020 there's a dip because of the pandemic, but last year we had imported 20,000 worth of goods to this country, right? And so here's the thing, right? Let's sort of make some sense here, right? SJB and JVP and the opposition is trying to create a false narrative. I mean, they're the opposition, so that's understandable. They're trying to make use of this this challenging time for their own political advantage. That's all they are interested in, right? What the JVP and the SJB are trying to do is to create an unrest in this country and push the country towards an even greater difficulty and challenge. And we have enough and more examples of such behavior by the UNP camp and the JVP camp in the past. This is what they're doing. They're asking people to come to the streets exactly like how they did it in the past, provoking the youth with all kinds of false narratives and sort of trying to create unrest in this country, right? And she mentioned that the government has curtailed their protests in the past. This government. What nonsense is she talking about? I mean, when did this government curtail your protests? We have given enough, and I mean, this is probably the best time for protests. People have the fullest freedom. There are no, you don't get the forces coming and stopping and blocking and doing any of that jazz, right? Everybody is free to come and protest, and the president has been very clear. There's freedom, there's democracy. If anybody wants to come out and protest,
so you're trying
let
to
them
say
do
that
it.
you're trying to say that since 2019, when Gotabaya Rajapaksa was appointed as the president of the country, there have been free protests across the country.
Yeah.
Can I give you an example? A few years ago, when there was COVID,
Yeah.
the government suppressed a group of individuals who were protesting opposite the Fort railway station. Doesn't that ring a bell to you?
Shamir, don't you remember that there was COVID?
Okay.
That was a bloody pandemic.
Yeah.
Right? She mentioned that people, children
but
can't
this
go
was
to schools.
at the time. No, this was
Right.
this was no.
Hold on.
Wait, I
Hold
just
on.
want to.
So let me finish.
Wait. No, you say no. Let me also pose you questions to you, Anand, because
Yeah.
I can't let you finish when I know it's not factually correct. Now,
what do you mean? There was a pandemic.
when there was a pandemic,
there was a
myself,
pandemic.
Rajapaksa was appointed as a minister of finance during a pandemic.
So-
there was times that kiribats were being served to people during the pandemic,
Which is also wrong.
which is also wrong.
Which is also wrong. Right?
so-
which is also wrong. I'm not. See, you know me, Shamir.
Yeah.
I'm
I
not
don't
a
know
guy
yet. Let's
who will just-
let's learn about each other at the show today.
See,
the show today. Yeah.
Shamir, don't treat me like somebody who is just whitewashing things. Right? I have always been faithful. I've always been open. I've always been honest. Right? If something is not right, I've said that it is not right. But if something is right, then I have to say that it is right.
No, because one of the questions why I posed you the opening question, Eranda, was the fact that when I asked you a question about what was the first advice you gave to the president, the reason why I posed this question to you is the fact that many people who have come out of the government now, who have been fired from the cabinet portfolios, are of the opinion that the president does not listen.
Absolute rubbish. Absolute rubbish. Right now there's cabinet meeting going on. All the ministers come. They have absolute secrecy.
So you're saying, around a few years ago, 2 years ago, you put up on your Facebook account, because you may not remember, let me recollect it to you.
No, I remember.
On your Facebook account, that I will not be responsible for anything related to the organization, that is the Vietmag organization question, in the future. And you also claim that you are resigning from the organization in order to focus on your personal aspirations.
Yeah.
However, a few days ago, before all this happened, you commented that it is not possible to fix the country's economy while traveling in a luxurious vehicle.
Yeah.
And that the state of the economy is obvious by looking at the number of shops for rent on either side of the road.
Yeah.
Now, the government listened to the people.
Absolutely. They listened to me. That's why they stopped the importing of vehicles. You think that they didn't listen to what I said? They absolutely listened to what I said, right? And these are trivial matters. I even spoke against the East Terminal at the Colombo ports, right?
Didn't you talk about the fertilizer ban?
No. Well, I'll come to the fertilizer, right? That's a good point. I'm a social entrepreneur, right? And I stand with the organic farmers. I'm one of the guys. You mentioned Vietmag. That's a separate organization, right? That's not part of the government. That's an independent organization. In fact, in the 2018 Vietmag conference, Shamir, the speech that I gave, which became a viral speech, right? The first point that I make is that we need to become 100% organic farming in this country and be able to sustain our food supply within the country. So that is my policy. And I fully back the president's initiative for organic farming.
Today we are in this mess. One of the reasons that we are in this mess today
that's
not
factually wrong. Factually wrong.
Not stopping. Then why did you all lift the ban?
I'll tell you.
Yeah. Why do you lift the ban? If you all were so steadfast about it,
I'll tell you
why did you all lift the ban?
So listen, right? In fact, if you talk about the fertilizer imports factually, right? Do you know that in 2011, $407 million dollars worth of fertilizer was imported to Sri Lanka, right? In 2012, it was 311. In 2013, 238. 2014, 272. 215, 218. In 2016, which is the Yahapalane government, 136. That's the lowest. It was the Yahapalane government that imported the least amount of fertilizer during that time.
You can't remember the past, Eranda, because
right. So
you know what the reason was for 2016 for the numbers to come down.
Exactly, there are reasons.
Do you know?
Right, there are reasons.
Right. Give me one reason. You're so articulating about the fertilizer ban. Tell me, because you know, you are well aware, and you are well learner. Tell me one reason in 2016 for the fertilizer to come down.
I don't know. You tell me.
Right. I'll tell you. The reason was the ban on glyphosate. Okay, that was the reason that the fertilizer importation came down. But that's besides the point.
But glyphosate is not fertilizer.
It's part of
it. Is not
chemical,
fertilizer.
It's chemical
Glyphosate.
Fertilizer. Yeah.
No.
Eranda, you have to let me in the fertilizer. So Eranda, no. Let me pose a question to you. Let me pose a question to you, Eranda. Right.
Glyphosate
Do you
is
know?
not fertilizer.
Do you know? Last year, how much of tea crop Sri Lanka lost as a result of banning the importation of fertilizer? No. Do you know?
I don't know.
Right. Do you know how much of foreign revenue that tea industry brings to Sri Lanka every year?
You tell me.
Right. Okay. I rest my case there. That's it.
Yeah, but
So
do
I
you
rest my
know?
case. I know.
Do you know?
It's 1.5 billion US
Yeah, but
dollars
do
worth
you
of.
know that-
You know how much
do
of
you
crop
know-
Sri Lanka
do
lost?
you know?
26
Shamir.
million kilograms
Shamir.
of tea we lost. As a
Shamir.
result of that, we today lost what? Do you know? Our
Shamir,
foreign
but do
presence
you
in the
also
global
know?
tea market.
Do you also
I
know
rest my
it was
case.
the last 3
Right.
months that we had the highest export revenue in the history of Sri Lanka?
Yeah,
Right?
Yeah, right.
So,
Anyway,
see,
we will
see,
talk
there
about
are-
we
there are
can
reasons-
argue and talk about
Shamir.
it today. We'll have a very good conversation
Yeah,
with
sure.
you, Randa. Let's
Yeah,
take it
yeah,
from there.
Yeah, but see,
Yeah.
I mean,
No, we'll take it.
To be
Let me.
to be fair,
Yeah, let me speak to Mr. De Silva, and I will speak to you more in length as the show goes on. Mr. Lasil De Silva, former Secretary of Presipac, Presidential Commission to investigate serious acts of fraud and corruption. Mr. De Silva, interestingly, when Uday Gammampila and Bimal Weerawansa left the government ranks, they made serious allegations about the Minister of Finance, Basil Rajapaksa. Now, you were one person who was investigating matters related to the first family of Sri Lanka in the 2016-2018 period. What are your thoughts? Are these allegations baseless, or are these allegations having something concrete?
You know, for the first time, actually, the Yahapalana government got a mandate, and the previous government, Rajapaksa government, was defeated because they said there were a lot of corruption issues and all that. And those allegations, you're asking me whether they were true or false, right? I would say they were true and they were not false. Now, for the first time, it was our commission where we started investigating, as you correctly stated, not the first family alone, even so many other cabinet ministers, quite a lot of them, and public officers, all that, right? So it came to a situation, even during that period, I think, the camp, like Bimal Weerawansa and Uday Gammampila and quite a lot of them, right? They said all those were false allegations. Actually, none of those were false allegations. Now, let me say it this way. Unfortunate situation was halfway through, we were thrown out. So all that had to be stopped. And there were about 37 reports finalized, and that was handed over to the then president. I believe one or two, like Sarath Gunaratne in Nigambu and a few other cases were filed. But the biggest problem, there were similar cases. And unfortunate situation is some of those cases were under this government. I think 30 odd cases again have been, after all, you know about it, right? What happened in the judiciary. So I don't think they were false. I don't think there was nothing in those allegations. There were serious allegations. But with the situation in the country right now with, 20th Amendment and having strengthened the presidency, all that, right? Probably all that may be happening in that way. My argument is, for the last so many years, since the introduction of the 78th Constitution, the country was on the wrong track. There is a culture of impunity.
Right.
No one has been dealt with. And everybody, they continuously rob, and again, they get even nominations, come back. That's the sad part of the story.
Now, Mr. De Silva, when someone clean points the finger at someone who is corrupt, you may be able to buy that argument. You can stomach that argument. But the allegations are being made by an individual who has two passports.
This
for his
is the
wife.
thing, you know.
Then you have an individual who did a campaign by getting 100 rupees from public and not accounting that for. Now, these people themselves don't have a good background. A rogue calling a rogue. How can the people believe it?
Now, let us look at in a different
I don't want to call them a rogue, but corrupt individuals calling someone corrupt.
Basically, in my view, I have served in parliament for a very long period. I have heard of various reports considered by the COPE and the PAC, and I know for the last so many, I mean for a few decades, right, how many reports were tabled in parliament with regard to most of those politicians, because most of those institutions like CB, Petroleum Corporation, and entire SOEs, state-owned enterprises, right, have been dealt with, in the sense there were reports against most of this. So my situation is, my feeling is, most of them, they were corrupt, but not a single person was convicted, because most of those things went under the carpet.
Now, Mr. De Silva, even last week we were discussing this in length with Harini Amarasuriya, who is an NPP, a member of parliament, who came from the national list. Now, you've been in parliament for many, many years. It goes up to a few decades in your parliamentary service. However, let's take a look at the COPE for an example, Mr. De Silva. What are the convictions that have come from COPE? You know, you all sit in every year, you all discuss about it, you all argue about it, you all call individuals who are corrupt, but where are the convictions?
You know, the biggest problem in this country, now, it was in 1958, Act number 40, where Bandaranaike, during the Bandaranaike government in 56, right, there were 5 MPs whose civic rights were removed, right? Thereafter, in 1994.
No, but the COPE piece of legislation came in 1978.
No, actually COPE was set up in 78, but what I'm trying to say, what happens here in this country, right? In general, after 1956, it was in 1994 setting up of the bribery, Seabok, right? I remember a specific statement as the Minister of Justice, GL Piris, said. He said, hereafter we will turning a new page in our country, and there will be a new country. Under this, there will be no corruption, there will be no thefts or whatever, abuse of power, all that, right? The same minister is there as the president of the Pohotu also. What I'm trying to say, this is all what they say. Now, having said that, you could still see corruption going on, and in an increased pace, So this is what is happening. I don't know. Even in the COPE, most of the reports that were tabled in Parliament, unfortunately, beyond that, they never took any meaningful steps.
Absolutely none. Nothing at all.
Nothing at all.
So why do you establish a COPE? If no concrete action is taken,
I think.
What is the reason?
It's a very good question, right? Now, see, all what happened after 1948 up to 1978, right? There were very good things happening under the parliamentary system, Westminster model. So naturally, during that period, Parliament had enough power. It was really not a rubber stamp in that way. Now, in 78, after the 1978 Constitution, right? But I would take you back again to 72, because in 72, again, Parliament to a great extent was actually, I think, weakened, right? But the worst happened in 1978. After 1978, I mean, floodgates were open. Everything, like corruption, impunity, all that in a big way.
Corruption has been there in Sri Lanka not since 1978, Mrs. Silva.
No, I mean, you
It has
can't
been
say it
there
that way.
even before that.
No, you can't say it
But
that
we've
way.
had we have had leaders with a lot of integrity at that time.
Definitely. So naturally, what I'm
difference.
now see, thinking it, there might be an occasion where I might be able to take this up. Now in England, right, Nolan Commission, this is to strengthen integrity of MPs, right? So there are things like that, and these things are adopted. Unfortunately, nothing happens here because
Right.
no one.
We'll get back to all this,
Please.
Mr. De Silva, momentarily. I want to open the floor for questions from our journalist. So onto my immediate right is Nadir Majid. Onto my immediate left is Shehan Ranatunga, who puts up a great panel for us day in and day out, every week in and week out. So thanks, Shehan, for that. Now, having said that, I just want to start off the second round with Lihine. A lot of serious allegations were leveled by Eranda during his opening remarks. Do you want to counter them, or
Yes,
can we go for the Q&A?
Of course, I want to ask
away?
Eranda whether he doesn't walk on the roads or whether he doesn't see the protests that are happening outside. I mean, you see people outside queues, long queues, petrol queues, gas queues, people expressing their frustrations coming on the road. I mean, doesn't he see all these things? Is it just about the opposition trying to provoke, or is it the citizens getting on the road and, you know, expressing their displeasure over the government? Why is the government having a blind eye to all these things? We'd like to question. Where is the president right now? Doesn't he, at least, you know, this is the time he needs to have his Gama Samaga Pirisandara go to the Gama and see what exactly is happening.
He's meeting people. He's meeting people everywhere.
If he's meeting the people, he would understand the pulse of the people. He would see, he would feel the pulse of the people.
Down.
No, you honestly, you cannot calm down. If you are a citizen of this country,
right,
who wants to live a dignified life, who has lived a dignified life, who had as basics, who has experienced the basics, being in queues for long hours, experiencing 7.5-hour power cuts. This is not the country we want to live.
Right, okay.
The leaders of this country need to understand
So
that.
you need to give an opportunity to Eranda to respond as well.
And
Yes,
also, I
Eranda.
want to say one thing. He was talking about protest and freedom.
Can we just finish this and then come to that? Yeah. Eranda.
I mean, there needs to be at least basic level of civility in public discourse. Shamir, you know, I don't want to sort of, you know, go on that negative path, right?
What do you
Please,
mean by negative part?
You know, it's. I'll tell you what
Yes,
is this negative part, right? Can you please have
we
a
can see
close
that.
up
We can
of
see.
this?
We can see.
Right?
Yes.
This Shamir shows the Sri Lanka foreign exchange reserves. This is from Trading Economics. You know, they have collated information from central bank and so on, right? So this shows how our foreign exchange reserves have changed over the years, right? This is 2007. After the war ended, we see the foreign reserves increasing. There are dips, but it's generally increasing. And then this is 2016, 2015, 2016, 17. There's a general dip in the foreign reserves, even during the Yahapalne government, right? And then it increases again towards the latter part of the Yahapalne government, right? And then what happens is the April 21st terrorist attack happens, right? And then steep decline of the foreign reserves.
No, that's wrong. That is a 52-day government. You have not gone
Yes,
through this
sorry,
figures probably.
yeah, that's correct.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, the 52-day government scenario.
Where former President Mahinda Rajapaksa was appointed as the Prime Minister of the country, and there was a revolt.
Yes.
Where we lost approximately around $2 billion. Yeah.
And then there's another climb, but then the terrorist attack happens, and then it drops. And I think this is probably the time. Well, hold on for a second. This is 2019, right? So this climb is after Gotabaya Rajapaksa became the president, right? But then starts the decline, the big decline, And as you can see, this is the COVID crisis, right? In the early 2020s, and it falls down.
Ananda, while you're having that on your hand, where everyone can see those figures properly, when the foreign reserves are in a decline, now you are one of the advisors to the president.
Yeah.
So it cannot be the blind leading the blind. It has to be individuals with good stature advising the president. So in January, when we were in a crisis, when the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce, when organizations came and told on this very show, day in and day out, that the debt needs to be restructured. Do not pay the $500 million US on ISB payments in January. Was the government sleeping?
No. All right. So, I mean, Shamir, I like the whole dramatization and the emotionalization of the question. I mean, that's one of your styles of presenting, right? I really like how you do it, right? But
let's get into the
it's rather fallacious, right?
Because it's nuts and bolts of the question. Let's forget about the
right?
being
So
dramatized.
I don't want to sort of get entangled in that whole drama.
No, but was the government asleep?
No, the government was very open. The government listened to all of those things. But the thing is this, Shamir,
that they went ahead and paid it.
And yes, because just like how some of those business people come and speak here to you, saying not to pay it, there are some others who are saying that we should pay it.
Right. Eranda, let's forget about all this.
Right.
Let's say at least then the government learned a lesson.
You are not letting me finish.
I will give you a chance.
Can you kindly give me just 1 minute to finish?
Eranda, you're misleading the public. You are saying things that are not concretely evident, because it's all loose.
You see,
when you're saying something false, I can't let you continue talk and mislead the public. So let's forget about all this for a moment. Let's look at the Economic Council that was appointed by the government. The Economic Council. You know, there was the Economic Council that was appointed by the government. Do you know who the members are?
I mean, I really don't appreciate the condescending.
Right. Okay. I'll tell you. I'll tell you. Right. So I'll tell you the members. President Mahinda Rajapaksa.
If your intention is to post
Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa,
condescending,
Dr. Bandulu Gunawardena,
insulting arguments. Why should I be here, Shamir?
I'm asking you. So the Economic Council. Let's take a look at the Economic Council. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, Dr. Bandulu Gunawardena, Basil Rajapaksa, Johnston Fernando, Mahindanand Aludgamge, Dr. Ramesh Patrina, Central Bank Governor Ajit Niwad Kabra, President Secretary Gamini Sendra, Treasury Secretary S.R. Artigala, and Central Bank Deputy Governor Dhammika Nanayakara are members of this council in question. Out of the members of this council, only 2 members don't attend the cabinet meetings. Who are the 2 members? S.R. Artigala and the Central Bank Deputy Governor Dhammika Nanayakara are not summoned week in and week out at the cabinet meetings. When the cabinet or the Economic Council meets at cabinet meetings every week, why have an Economic Council with these members? Look at the Tamil Nadu Economic Council that was established in June last year. I don't think the government is aware, but I'll tell you, right? In June, they appointed the Economic Council. The Economic Council consisted of 5 members. Who are the advisors to the Economic Council? Nobel Prize-winning US economist Esther Duflo, Raghuram Rajan, the former Reserve Bank Governor of India, Central Government former Chief Economic Advisor Aravind Subramaniam, Professor John Drives from the Delhi School of Economics, and former Union Government Finance Secretary S. Narayan. Now look at the high-profile members the Tamil Nadu government appointed to the Economic Council. Look at the Economic Council that we have appointed.
Right. So your point is basically, right, all this jazz is to say that we should have
No, this is not jazz. These are facts.
Yeah. No. Can I say that I understand your point, right?
Right.
The point that you are making.
Okay. If you say so, then but these are not jazz. These are real questions that the people want to ask.
The point that you are making, Shamir, is that you are saying that we should have appointed professorial and laureates and Nobel laureates, and now we don't have Nobel laureates in Sri Lanka.
Even Tamil Nadu have Nobel laureates in India with regard to economics.
So let me now answer your question. Right. What other countries do is up to those countries. Right. this government is run by this government, right? Not what Lihini or somebody wants, right? The purpose of setting up that council, Shamir, is to, sort of speed up some of the processes, because we need some kind of speedy process during this, temporary challenging period, right? There's nothing wrong in having different councils with the same kind of people, right? So just because that in all the countries, if you take,
But this is about blind leading the blind.
May I respond?
See, the problem is you're asking me a question and then you're not letting me finish the answer. It's very unfair.
You were a
Let me
prominent
finish.
member of
Let me
Vietnam.
finish.
You came to govern this country in a scientific manner and not to have uneducated politicians running this country.
This is really bad, Shamir, right?
May I
This is
ask
really
you, where
bad.
is the educated in the
This is
Vietnam?
really
You
bad.
promised to the government,
Calling
you promised to the
people
general
uneducated,
public.
right? This is elitist talking,
it is
right?
factual.
This is
factual.
elitist, racist,
What
bigoted
did you come?
talking.
What did you
right?
come?
This is
what
what
did you
she's
promise
doing,
to
right?
the government? What did you promise
she's
to the 6.9 million?
She's
No.
discriminating elected officials.
Of course not.
Discriminating elected
there's an issue,
officials on public
because-
media,
of course not.
calling them
Ranga.
uneducated,
Of
right?
course not.
See, that's
Do
what
not-
you did.
do not
That's exactly
misinterpret.
what you did.
No, do not
You
misinterpret.
discriminated.
What I asked you was, you
that's
promised
exactly
to the
what you did,
promised
right?
to the people, saying
It
the
was a
government
really
will be
ugly-
managed in a
this is a-
scientific manner. You promised, you said Vietnam individuals will come in for governance. Where are they today? Where are they
This
today?
is-
When the
this is-
crisis is
this
happening,
is-
where
this
are
is-
they today?
I mean,
These are
don't-
legitimate
don't
questions
go to
that
that.
the general public is
Don't go to
questioning.
that level, right?
No.
Don't go to that
You
level.
don't have an economic council. The country is in crisis.
Don't
The
call
country is in
elected
crisis.
officials. Don't disrespect
Look,
and dehumanize
this is
and
the
call
country.
uneducated.
This is
right?
not running
this
a
is
boutique
really,
shop.
really
This is the
bad,
lives of the
right?
people of this country.
There
You've
are
got to have
enough
some
and-
responsible
Wow.
manner in
Look
which the
at this.
country is
What is
being
this?
governed.
What is
Extremely displeased.
this? This is like, what is this shouting? Why are you so angry?
Of
Calm
course,
down.
I'm not the only one. The general public, everybody is angry right now.
Lihini.
This is just not my sentiments. It is the sentiments of everybody. I speak for the
I mean,
general public of this
Guys,
country.
if this is how you want to run this, I don't want to talk. I mean, okay, you talk.
Okay.
I will
No,
listen.
can I
okay,
come in?
yes,
I am not a fighter in any way.
Yeah.
Let me peacefully say what
No,
it
I will
is.
listen.
I fully agree with Randa, because he says they are governing in their own style. Unfortunately, they have no better people. You shouldn't embarrass him, because they don't have anyone better than the numbers who have been sort of appointed. Go to the parliament, right? Our problem is basically all what you see could be seen there. There is no purposeful debate. There is no fruitful debate, right? Even
Guys,
Johnston
I mean,
Fernando.
this is really boring.
No.
And this is so
No,
condescending.
this is the
and
truth.
very,
This is the
very,
truth. Nothing but the truth. I don't want to know.
Very,
No,
very condescending. And I don't like the style in the way that this whole discussion is going. So I don't want to be part of
You have
this.
to understand, that
I don't want to be part
everyone-
of this.
no,
I came
everyone-
for a civilized.
no,
Face the
no,
Nation has always
no,
been
Eranda,
a very civil.
The thing
discussion.
is, Eranda, you can always walk out, but what I want to tell
I'm
you
sorry,
is,
guys.
no, Eranda, what I want to tell you
I'm
is,
leaving.
no, that's okay.
I'm leaving. This is not for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I want a civil discussion.
Right.
I came here for a civilized, fact-based.
no, you are
I came
right.
prepared.
You are
I
right,
came
because
prepared.
they have nobody
He's
better
very-
than
he's
that.
insulting. He's still insulting, right? It was a very discriminatory.
Can I-
racist,
did I
bigoted,
insult?
Yes, you supported exactly what she said, right?
No, I
This is-
supported her because her
We are
thinking
telling
was
the
correct.
truth. We are
You
telling
know,
the truth.
actually, what you
as
all,
as a person who has been part of the parliament, please don't disrespect elected officials.
no,
That is not
no,
democracy.
that is democracy.
I'm sorry, guys.
Flouted, you know, because
But that's okay, Eranda. That's your wish. You can always walk out if you don't want to be a part of the conversation. But Ms. Disla, you were saying about let's talk about the economic council that has been appointed by the government. Do you think that they should have appointed individuals with good stature to the economic council in question?
you know, apparently they don't have anyone better than that. Look at the entire parliament, right? Actually, the SJB, or not the SJB, NPP has a kind of people, all of them unfortunate situation is there, they have no one better than that, right? So the whole system, actually we need to blame the party leaders, right? It is the leaders who are responsible. Why did they give nominations to that kind of people, right? This is basically the reason why we are in this position in this country. You will never be able to take this country forward unless you do something to change the political culture.
Exactly.
You know, you have to change the political culture. What is really important is basic rules have to be introduced, right? When you give nominations, don't give nominations who will not be able to do the role as legislators, right? They are called legislators. They should be able to read, understand what legislation is, right? And somebody said recently, no, if they present a bill, we support it, we raise our hands, we will push through. So that's not what is expected from a member of parliament. You know, it's a much bigger role. So naturally, they don't have anyone better. What can they do?
No, but you can always consult individuals. You know,
For
during
that
the
purpose,
Yahapalni
that is why
even the Yahapalni government, when they were making the economic outlook for the years, they went ahead and spoke to graduates from outside the country to see the way in which how the country's economic situation could be further strengthened. But nothing of that sort is being taken by this government. Why?
You know, this system again actually has been totally broken down. What I am trying to say, even if the members of parliament are not knowledgeable, right? There was a period the public officials were fully, competent, and they knew their subject, and they were the people who advised, gave them advice, right? So during that period, the entire machinery was running so smoothly, so very well. And eventually, in the end, the people were served a lot better than what it is now. Look at what happened from the time that they were elected, right? This aflatoxin issue. How did those officials in the commissions or authorities act, right? That is not the way how it should be. Look at the police, how they are behaving on the streets. Police are definitely responsible not to violate human rights, right? There are so many things. They have even go beyond. Unfortunately, they carry out. I know even on this floor, I can just say that police officers are promoted, particularly if they are aligned or if they have the support from the political leadership. That is wrong. That is why the police commission was brought in and introduced. They have removed that.
This is, you're talking about this commission. This is a problem that we have, right? Do you feel that in the from 2015 through to 2019 that these commissions were effective, that they're doing their job? What was the police commission doing?
You know, even
because if you look at like the numbers from the few raids that the bribery commission does carry out annually, from this government to before that to the previous government, across successive administrations, one of the main targets has always been the police. Most of the complaints are related to the police. Even, it's before this administration, but the last Transparency International's last global corruption barometer from 2019 again indicated that one of the least trusted, rather,
most corrupt,
one of the least trusted, not most corrupt, least trusted.
There is a report, one of the most corrupt institutions.
Yeah, one of the least trusted, because this is you can't say most corrupt based on what the public perceives. No, it has to be based on.
I have a report.
But one of the institutions that the public are the least trusting was the police. So my question is, what were all of these independent commissions doing during that time, including the bribery commission as well?
This is exactly the point, right? There is a problem, serious problem in governance in this country, right? That is why, after a very long period, from the time they introduced the 78 Constitution, there were allegations and there were demands. People wanted the presidency abolished, right? Because there was a serious situation, there was a lot of interferences, judiciary, all that, right? I will take you back. Janagosha case, where
I just want to interrupt. I just want to interrupt you for a second, Mr. De Silva. We just had Iran the Guinea President's advisor who was on the show a couple of minutes ago, but unfortunately, Iran the Guinea ran away from the show, unable to face the nation. When individuals who are keyboard warriors are given positions leading the blind, the answer to them is that they can't face the nation. They are out of context, they don't know what's happening, and they don't know what's going on. And unfortunately, Iran the Guinea had to leave the show tonight. But still for all, we are a network that gives equal opportunity for the guests that we have invited. We always give them respect. And hence, let's continue with our discussion. Just because Iran the Guinea left, that doesn't mean that the country will stop functioning. The country will run. Unfortunately, when posed questions about the country's exports, when a presidential advisor is not privy to that information, how can he even tell the president what needs to be done? So having said that, I let Nadim continue with his questions.
This is getting back to what I was talking about, because we are talking about these independence. I mean, it's not enough to just give constitutional independence, right? You have to have people who are willing to act independently as well. Because when you look at, like I mentioned, I was looking through the Bribery Commission's annual reports. You look at pre-19th Amendment, and now right after post-19th Amendment, there doesn't seem to have been any improvement in performance or any kind of, it appears to be very stagnant, you know, it's very, it's very disillusioning, because you expect that, okay, these are, because if you, according to what you say, if you say that, oh, there is a call for greater independence, people want to take these responsibilities and act on it, we need to help the bureaucrats and the officials do their jobs. But in the 5 years that, let's say, they did have great independence, there's nothing that happened.
I fully agree with you. What is the problem in the country? Now, as you very rightly pointed out, the biggest problem in this country, sorry, the public servants do not do their job. Is that the reason what you are really trying to sort of highlight?
No, that's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is what is it that it will take? Because clearly, if it's not, it looks to me that there is a absence of the will to act.
No, you know, let me now just, fortunately, I have brought it here with me, right? Our country, we have a big problem. One is a leadership issue, as you very rightly stated, because, you know, things are not happening, the leaders, whatever, there are issues. And on the other hand, there's a big governance issue, right? So, what do we need to do in order to put governance right? Let me take you back prior to the 72 period, right? Pre-72 period, there was no such problem. To a great extent, the machinery was running very smoothly. And there was an issue here and there, were so many issues. Like in 1956, Bandaranaike ordered the then IGP, Osman De Silva, to stop the strikers, right, in the port. And the IGP said, no, that's not my business. They have a right to strike, and I can't do that. What did Bandaranaike do? He was suspended, right? Anyway, he was taken back for a lot of problems again. What I'm trying to say, in 1972, the constitution was replaced. Before they replaced the constitution, they abolished the Senate, right? Why did they abolish the Senate? Because they knew there is going to be a problem. If you don't abolish the Senate first, they will not be able to push through the whole thing, right? Because Senate is a body.
So, again, Ms. De Silva, I mean, even
no,
when you look at it historically, though,
yeah.
When you look at it,
because
a lot of senior public officials, they tend to say, oh, there were these glory days. This is it's gotten much worse, and maybe that is true, but
no,
you do see a pattern of I'm not really sure what to call it. But
you know,
it's like let's just maintain this
no,
status
no,
quo.
no.
Let's protect
You
our
know,
coutiers.
these three institutions, you call it those three pillars, right? The executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. There is a policy, there's a principle called Montesquieu principles. What are those? Those are really, you can't interfere, or you can't even, you know, they have to allow to function independently. You got to allow them to function independently, right? In our country, from 1978 onwards, right, the situation has changed. What did they change? Now, in 78, the biggest change they did was the president said, I want a position where I will be able to take all unpopular decisions, right? And I will not be answerable to parliament, which is wrong. Why? Parliament.
That is definitely okay. Let's say that that's wrong. But the thing is, I want to get to like, why is it that nothing happened even when that because it was not only during the 19th Amendment, even before that, with the 17th Amendment when greater independence was given. I'm sure if you look at
the 17th Amendment,
it'll be pretty much the same. What I'm saying is that there is a lack of accountability.
No,
because look, recently there's a journalist, Times Jayawardene, who'd gotten this information through RTI, who discovered that through RTI discovered that over the past 2 years alone, the Bribery Commission has withdrawn 38 cases that it had filed at the Magistrates Court and High Court. They've given various reasons for that in the RTI application. But before that, we saw cases in the bond case at the Special High Court. That, I mean, what irks me is that all of this money that is being spent on these officials, on these prosecutions, on these court proceedings,
on the entire
public money.
I would say it that way, right?
That's a waste of money,
it's a waste of money.
If these officials are not doing anything.
How do you make it efficient? Now, the biggest problem is, you know, Constitution is the rule book with regard to devolution of power, the powers of officers, powers of the president, this, that, and all that. What is expected from Parliament, all that is stated there. Unfortunate situation is nobody respects the Constitution, right? They don't bother. So naturally, the man at the top, the president, decides finally everything. You remember in 1978, Jayawardene took undated letters of resignation, right? And on that basis, the members of Parliament had to obey his orders. Today, the situation is even worse. You remember after the 20th Amendment, this police officer ASP in...
is it worse though? Because I mean, you see...
No, let me say...
MPs crossing over as they wish,
you know,
MPs leaving, going out, speaking to media, saying what they want. And
you
there
know,
doesn't seem to be consequences.
The whole problem is...
As per your, like...
The whole problem is we do not observe what needs to be done. Now, in Parliament, right? Now, the question again with even Ranga, right? He did not agree that there are no people who could handle that job, right? Actually, in this country, you need people not only with integrity, you need people with abilities, you know, the capabilities, right? So
you need people with the capability to represent their constituents, and they have been elected to represent their... They don't necessarily have to be PhD holders.
No, it doesn't necessarily have to be PhD holder.
PhD holder in an AC room in Colombo is not going to understand the struggles of the farmer in the Rajarata.
Now, shall I say
so
this?
I mean, in that sense, maybe to a degree I agree with that. But what I'm saying is, they have to be representatives. They need to understand those concerns and govern
accordingly. Under the Westminster model, you give people nominations who can do that, right? Go to places like Germany, or I'm sorry, let's talk about Commonwealth countries, right? Australia, Canada, New Zealand. You give it to people who really can do the job. That means something called meritocracy. Right? Even in this country, that should be the criteria. It doesn't matter whether you need a PhD or a degree or whatever, right? What you really need, if you have the proven capabilities, right? And there are situations like that, yeah, people have risen to the top and they have delivered.
Right. So I want to come back to Leni. Literally, you unseated the advisor, president from his seat.
I asked him a very fair question. These are not just my questions. Right. Questions of the citizens.
Yeah, right. Okay. So let's talk about tomorrow's protest. What are the key messages messages that are going to be delivered at tomorrow's rally by the SJB to the people?
So basically, we want to give a signal to the government that they need to govern responsibly, that to understand the people's problems, to bring it out to the general public, that people are actually suffering, that this is not the manner we don't want to be in dark for 7.5 hours. I mean, where are our basic needs? The government has failed to supply and provide our basic needs. The future of our children, the future of this country, the future of the people are all at stake. So we want to make an appeal to the government to govern responsibly. And also, Honorable Hari Fernando had said that we will give the government a period of 1 month, either deliver or resign. So the message is very clear. If the government cannot deliver... So you are
saying, at one instant, the main opposition party, the SJB, is saying that the government has to resign if they cannot deliver in 1 month. However, we saw former opposition leader Ranil Wickremesinghe as well as former Prime Minister of Sri Lanka saying that this is not the time to try and overthrow the government. Instead, everyone should unite to focus on addressing the crisis faced by the country at present.
So there are different schools of thought. There's one party who's saying that they all should unite at this point and come to one particular platform, draw up national policies, come up with a political consensus, like let's say a long-term strategy for the country, 10-year down strategy, economic policies to educational policies, and a complete overhaul in Sri Lanka. There's one school of thought. Then there's another school of thought who says that this particular government must face the brink of the crisis which was created by them, because it is their callous manner of governing. The tax reductions to all these things are created by them. Hence, it is their responsibility to ensure that they fix the mess. And there's another school of thinking where they say the government must resign and hand it over to another party to govern because they have failed. So there are different 3 schools of thinking here. So what we are trying to come to the general public is that they need to govern responsibly. If they cannot deliver, they cannot fail the public and continue in this manner.
Don't you think, Leni, that Ranil Wickremesinghe, knowing who he was in the past, may have probably signed a deal because there were talks about a national coalition government that is going to come to play in April. And there's also rumors that are spreading on Facebook that in this coalition government, Ranil Wickremesinghe may be or likely to be the Prime Minister as well. So there is rumors that are spreading. We are hearing stories from the grapevine communication channels at the moment. What are your thoughts?
See, I also saw a statement made by former President Mahinda Rajapaksa saying that there is no such agreement of that sort. So, I mean, there is one party who also says that, at this point that there needs to be some sort of top-level consensus among parties to fix this issue. So, whether Ranil Wickremesinghe should play a pivotal role there is also a question that is being raised. But we as the SJB here says that we act as the alternative government. So, if at all we will be the alternative government and that we will deliver to the people. So it is a question, I mean, at this point there are different arguments that can be brought out, but the simple reason is that the people of this country should not suffer, and then there needs to be solutions. So, and we are repeatedly saying that the government must go to the IMF, go for a debt restructuring and try to fix it, because they have the 2/3 mandate here.
But now, Leni, the talk is that it's too late. We saw Dr. Harsha De Silva making a statement in Parliament. He was very vociferous in the media campaigns that the SJB has launched with regard to tomorrow's event. If that case be the scenario, if it's too late to go to the IMF, if it's too late to get technical support, where do we stand right now? And what would be the SJB's future step in reviving the country's economy?
See, if SJB at all comes to power, what the SJB must be truthful by the people. They need to tell the people what exactly is possible and what exactly is not possible. This is my opinion.
So
because
shouldn't the SJB be doing that
and
now?
under-deliver. They have communicated what the economic policies, how they will debt restructure, how the tax policies will be revised, how the economy will be recovered, how the businesses, how the imports, all of that they have been speaking. Harsha De Silva, Honorable Iran Kabir Hashim has been speaking on this extensively on what is the strategy going forward, and they've also actually put out a certain 10-point strategy as well. So there is a plan, but it is not an easy road because the mess has already been created, and we are at a negative foreign reserves right now. So who comes next, it is not going to be an easy road, because the mess has already been created, and and the general public needs to understand. And who comes to government, even if it's SJB, they need to communicate the truth to the people, not overpromise and underdeliver, because you cannot actually deliver in this present crisis. What I personally think is Sri Lanka needs a complete overhaul in the system and the manner in which we govern. Because in terms of a scientific governance, the professionals need to come to the governing table. Because at all levels it is wrong. With corruption, we are at high levels of corruption. I can tell you from my council experiences, even from the brick that is brought to the council, there is corruption. This is at municipal council level, so you imagine the corruption at top levels.
You said something very interesting, Leni. You say that you cannot overpromise and underdeliver.
Yeah.
But isn't that what's happening with the political parties at present in Sri Lanka?
Yes.
We saw how the Rajapaksa regime came into power with the anti-nationalistic rhetoric.
Exactly.
They said a lot of things to the public but did not deliver.
Yeah.
We saw in 2015 even the Yahapalne government of Ranil Wickremesinghe came into power promising a lot of things, but nothing happened concretely. When you look at the political culture in Sri Lanka, don't you think that people have got fed up of the political parties who have run this country for a prolonged period of time? They want professionals to run the country. They want individuals with good stature to run the country. They want people with good caliber to run the country. That quality has to be there, isn't it?
Understand. But then the present system, see, what you see is from 5 years to 5 years, you come with different policies. There was Yahapalne, then there is Saubhagya Dakma, then there will be something else. There was Mahinda Chintanya, and these policies change. But what is Sri Lanka? What is the Sri Lankan policy? What is the Sri Lankan foreign policy? What is the debt policy? Nobody talks about it. And then the governments change, policies change. So there needs to be some sort of level of consensus. So you very rightly said, the country needs to be governed by professionals. But can the professionals get elected is the question. Does the present electoral system, the way in which nominations are given to politicians, can you get right people into politics? So isn't that the point? Isn't that the starting point where everything goes wrong? I mean, you look at back then when Gotabaya Rajapaksa came to power back in 2019, how he promised a very scientific manner in which the country will be led, how educated and how professionals will run the country. That is the hope that the people had. But now look where we are. We are worse than what we were. So it is politicians giving promises and false promises. But I think, my personal opinion is, yes, we need to have a countrywide policy, a consensus in terms of where we are going as a nation.
Leni, you said that the SJB already has a plan in place, but I don't recall whether you touched on this already, but do you realize that there is also a lot of opposition to the opposition, referring to the SJB? There's a lot of people who are saying, especially on social media, that the SJB is not doing enough. They're critical of the leader of the opposition, Sajid Premadasa. So why do you think people feel this way if the SJB does in fact have a plan?
See, SJB, I agree, SJB needs to come out far stronger with the policies and exactly what they are going to deliver. And then, yes, there has been discussion, the policies have been developed. It will come out to the public at the right time. What I want to say is this, SJB in terms of the manner which is governing, which they will govern the country, they will govern the country in the right direction, provided taking the right measures, the right decisions by the people, which will be favorable for the country, versus maintaining political balance. I would say when we were back in Yahapalne, what we did back then in terms of the tax structures that were introduced, in terms of how the foreign reserves, in terms of the policies that were taken by back then, how the foreign reserves were built, how the economy was built. So it was being taken in a right direction. However, there was a complete reversal back in 2019.
I mean, to be fair, like a majority of our debt that is now is an increasing share of our foreign debt is made up of international sovereign bonds, and a lot of those bond issuances did happen during the Yahapan administration.
But why? To whose loans were those bonds taken? To who? To cover up for whose loans? For the ports that were built for, white elephant projects that were built.
Says it was for to cover the second Rajapaksa administration's loans, and now the third Rajapaksa administration is saying it's to cover the Yahapan administration
many white elephant projects which even to this state are not generating any revenue.
The people are basically, stuck in between a rock and a hard place. So, but Lini, can I specifically the question that I wanted to ask you was, with these protests that the SJB has planned. Today, in response to a tweet, the party leader, Sajid Premadasa, the opposition leader, Sajid Premadasa, had tweeted that it is not the intention of the SJB to stoke unrest for political gain, but they have a responsibility to be the voice of the people. But yesterday, another senior party member says that, we are giving an ultimatum to the government within 1 month, we are going to have Arab Spring style protests. Is that the position of the SJB, to have Arab Spring style protests?
That's probably an opinion of one of the MPs, but however,
this MP is a senior figure in your party, and this is what worries me, because even with what was being said before, is that if it is purely for political gain, I mean, the Arab Spring was quite destructive. There was a lot of death and destruction that followed it. Is that where all of these protests are going to bring us?
See what
that the ultimatum? Is this the kind of like, because you were talking about the need for politics based on building consensus, but giving ultimatums is the opposite of consensus.
See, what one must worry is not the type of protest that happens in the country, but to create a situation that we don't have to protest. So if a severe protest warrants, it is because of the action of the government. It is not whether SJB leads it or not. The people will eventually protest if they are frustrated. So the government must make sure that it doesn't lead to a situation of that sort. It's not just SJB related.
But doesn't the SJB as the opposition have a responsibility to ensure that it does not escalate to that level? Because I'm asking this question because what the opposition leader tweeted today directly contradicts what this senior member of the parliamentary group or very prominent member of the parliamentary group said at the press conference yesterday. So my question as a concerned observer from the media is the SJB actively endorsing the kind of protests that bring about death and destruction, or should we believe what the opposition leader is saying, that the intention is not to stoke unrest for political gain?
I would say I would go by the opposition leader, because the opposition leader is a very responsible leader who has always acted in the interest of the people. So he will not act in a manner that is in a very irresponsible manner that will bring destruction. So he is always, I mean, though he is in the opposition, he has done certain measures which no opposition leader would do. So he will never bring destruction or disharm on the country or its people. So I would say one can trust on the opposition leader.
No, but if you look at what Nadeem said, let's take a look at where the Arab Springs began, from Tunisia. The country is almost a failed state. Look at Egypt, what happened in Egypt. The country was in political turmoil for many years, and the country is still riddling with a lot of problems in terms of the country's economy and all that and more.
Yemen right now. So that's not what we want, right, Leni?
We don't want that.
So
you can't blame it on the SJB. If it's the people, it doesn't have to be the SJB. If the people unrest, because the government is actually putting the people in a situation like that. So again, I bring the point. It's not about, whether SJB will it. It's the government must make sure that the people doesn't protest.
So today, the question, see, again, that brings back to, because, you were talking about what the let's say the heritage party of the SJB has been, their view is that everyone should come together and we should build consensus, and this is not a time to be toppling governments. Now, you spoke about the need to build consensus, but as I mentioned, giving ultimatums and consensus are, I mean, they're opposites. They're opposite words. So, do you feel that maybe the SJB should explore opportunities to work with the government, maybe even establish a national government to face this, what is bound to be a very severe economic crisis? Or do you feel that, you know, this government is so stubborn that there's no chance of working with them?
See, SJB at many instances, many occasions have given suggestions to the government and said that they were willing to support. Why did Harsha Iran and Kabir go and meet the central bank governor? Why? Because they were a responsible opposition. So SJB has come out and said they have acted in a responsible manner. It's just that the government does not want to listen to the opposition. I believe the government does not want to listen to anybody.
Right. So, Ms. De Silva, unfortunately, we don't have a third speaker today.
Yeah, it's okay.
Where we could have had a good public discourse on matters concerning the country. So we need to switch between the two of you, posing questions to you. So I'm extremely sorry for that. But okay. The conversation is very interesting. So that's what matters at the end of the day, at least for the public. Mr. De Silva, now, you all investigated a lot of matters relating to Finance Minister Basil Rajapaksa. Am I correct?
Yeah, actually, we investigated a few. I think FCID did a few more. Yeah.
So, however, Mr. De Silva, just a couple of months ago, the former minister was acquitted from all this, from the courts. So, people may think that all this effort that the UNP government or the Yahapalni government took was to take political revenge from the Rajapaksa family.
I can't agree with you, and I can't say, you know, I mean, this is correct. Unfortunately, the court has done that, right? And there were instances where even the judiciary had even pointed out that the Attorney General should take a firm stand and they should not permit this kind of things in that way. Actually, I like to take you back. You know, how does this happen, right? Now, my friend Nadim also asked me basically why you can't put the government right or the system right? You can certainly put the system right. Now, we have discussed this issue. We have put that on paper as well, right? Now, I'm just trying to say, in this country, the biggest problem is nobody adheres to the constitution. Nobody respects the constitution, right? In the whole country, we have tried various methods, trial and error, all that, you know. Unfortunately, at the moment, they have no system at all. The governance part of it, they do it the way they want. You can't do that. I don't call it governance. I don't call it a state structure, because the state structure has to be based on certain principles and policies, right? Now, my thinking, I would say, what we really want, you know, now, even with regard to the judiciary, look at India. They have a stronger judiciary because Article 50, they say you just can't touch the judiciary, right? In our country, we don't have such things. We need to introduce all that. Now, I have a document where we have drafted all that. Here, in that document, we have spoken of 5 branches, 5 pillars. That is the judiciary, the legislature, the executive, the independent regulatory commissions. All those are there. As Nadim said, they are not doing the right job. Why? I mean, it's a question mark. We have addressed that issue, right? The constitution is the 5th branch, in the sense the other way about. Constitution is number 1, goes down that way, right? We have said the constitution is the first branch of the state. In fully upholding the constitutionalism across the length and breadth of the nation, the constitution, the supreme law of the country, will be accepted as the first pillar of the state, the custodian of which will be the Senate, the guardian of the being the judiciary, right? On the other hand, B 1.6 again, entrenched provisions of the constitution. in order to safeguard the supremacy of the Constitution and rights of the people, the following will be included under entrenched provisions. Supremacy of the Constitution, rights, privileges and entitlements of people, right? Independence of the judiciary, bicameral parliamentary form of governance, independence regulatory oversight commissions, checks and balances, passage of all bills in parliament to be with 80% house approval. Why? Because most of the laws that have been passed during the last couple of are questionable, including the 20th Amendment. Go back to the 14th Amendment, right? There was a law that was enacted, the 14th Amendment, you know, having sent a note by the then President, my dear Chief Justice. Ultimately it became law. In 2005, there are two specific laws. The, what is this, strategic projects, right? Act number 14 and Act number 40, highways. Those two acts are really meant for robbing. Robbing, nothing else, right? All those laws have to be repealed. So we have carefully studied all those things, and you need to strengthen the governance system, those 5 pillars, right? And introduce all that. We, for the first time, had said, even to the legislators, you have to be given a duty list. Nowhere in the world have been given a duty list because they think that they are a superior lot of...
But, yeah. Ms. De Silva, now, if you look at commitments made by politicians, now, I want to drag you to the statement that was made by Minister Vimal Veeravansa and Udega Mampila. They said that the president promised them that there would be a change in the country's constitution in an year, and that did not take place. So when there are politicians promising and under-delivering, what can the people do about it?
No, that's the biggest problem. Now, that's a promise between the politician versus politician, two politicians, right? What about the promises given to the masses?
The public. Through manifestos.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What about the promises? Yeah, right. They have fulfilled only one, according to me, as far as I feel, the 20th Amendment, right? Having got so much of power, what have they done? They have messed up the whole country. That's all what they have done. So what I say is repeal the whole thing. Go back to Soulbury plus a few more, right? That is what is needed. Unless otherwise you will never be able to change this country. We will be facing even bigger problems in the future, right? If you want to put the system right, go back to Soulbury plus, I would say.
Mr. De Silva, don't you feel that, because whenever we speak of these problems with, even with politicians, with civil society activists, there's always a grand approach of, you know, we need constitutional amendments, or we need a new constitution, we need to... And this is kind of the problem that I was trying to highlight earlier as well, because even with the necessary legal framework put in place, that didn't lead to that didn't cause a spike in activity or a spike in this thing. Don't you feel that the problem really is the lack of accountability and oversight?
You know, Plato.
Because right now I feel like there's no motivation to do, because there's no consequences.
Actually, there are certain issues that needs to be resolved, right? Plato had said, even without a constitution, if you have good men, you can run anything better than, you know,
and
right?
See, if you have a leader that loves the law, who respects the law, who respects democracy of a country, he will make sure he functions within the law. He doesn't violate the law.
Right.
Because here what politicians want to do is they want to have long-term political sustenance. Hence they bend the law, mend the law. And see, today virtually all pillars of integrity, governance, I would say, have collapsed.
Because there was a time, Mr. De Silva, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, on one of these meetings, Gamasandara Pilisanarak, says to the to a state sector officer that when I say it, that is a circular.
It is absurd, I will say. It is silly, right? A head of state can't do that. I mean, his word is not final. The constitution is ultimately the final within which he has to play. So this is basically the reason. Now, once he said, I can, if they don't do it, I can put the army and push them and get them to do that, right? Jaya Jayawardene said, I can't only make a woman a man. All this should not be allowed, right? They have, that is again called limited governance, right? And we have even stated that here.
In your opinion, Mr. De Silva, in your opinion, who is governing the country right now? Is it the president, the prime minister,
I also have
or the
some
minister of
link.
finance?
I also have a link to the Rajapaksa family. It is a family which is governing, right? That should not be the way. It's a shame to say prime president is a Rajapaksa. Prime minister is a Rajapaksa. Finance minister. That again, conflict of interest, right? Now see, usually the minister of finance, there are certain things where you have to get the approval of the president under special circumstances, particularly, I mean, the situation is not there. But the problem is, look at the central bank, right? You have to have an independent, non-political person, right? The whole system has been messed up. It is all because the system is corrupt, right? How do you put the system right? You have to put the system right. Unless you don't do that, there's no future. You might have to close up your business. Everybody will have to go begging down the line. Now see what happened. Even countries like Zimbabwe, right? Such a strong country, they messed up, right? Look at South Africa. Nelson Mandela said, we want to live. Give us the right to live. And that's how he came out, right? And he came out and he ultimately started a lot of things, a new constitution, all that. Unfortunately, back again, there are little deficiencies. That's not the problem. But you have to have a good leader. Look at Lee Kuan Yew. He said, look, having come here, having seen that, actually, he got motivated from our country and went and did there. But later in 1970s, he said, I saw the wrong side of it, because that was with regard to this Lanka, right? So there are issues. I mean, we don't want to waste time, but what I am trying to say, if you have a good leader, we were in the books, in the literature long years ago, that this was a model. I brought another one. Why Bangladesh is being called South Asian economic miracle, right? From 71 onwards, because this parliamentary system and good leadership, right? But I am trying to say, we have to go back to the old system that existed prior to 1972 and do the developments there, adapt little more, like commissions and all that. We had 2 commissions, right? Those 2 commissions are Public Services Commission and the Judicial Services Commission, right?
Sir, someone who's watching the show tonight may think Mr. De Silva is bringing forth archaic policies.
It's you know, let them now see. It's not archaic, right? Now here, I said about the 4th branch, Independent Regulatory Oversight Commissions. Let the people who are watching this, right? Independent Regulatory Oversight Commissions. Let them go and search the internet, right? That's the 4th branch globally accepted, right? So we have made, I love this country. I will not make anything which is dreadful, right? I want the country to prosper.
Right. So you are saying, Mr. De Silva, that leadership is important.
Yeah.
Do you see that leadership in President Gotabaya Rajapaksa?
Nowhere in Parliament. Nowhere in Parliament. Right. I'm sorry to say it. I mean, these ladies may be better.
So you are saying even Sajid Premdas or Andrew Kumar Disanayake?
Now that's an embarrassing question, because I don't want to commit on that.
No,
if that is the case, I want all the 225 out.
Yeah. All new fresh faces to come in.
New faces to come in. That's my thinking, right? Because they have contributed all together to the present situation. The opposition has a role to play. What did they do for so many years, right? They have been a party to this mess.
Now, that's a very strong statement by Mr. De Silva. Now, you as someone who I know personally on the show and coming on the show, even your first instance on a public discourse was on Face the Nation. So you are very open about and very vocal about and very truthful about what you always say. Even the current opposition has to be responsible for the economic mess or the mess that we are in at present. Do you agree with that statement?
See, let me tell this way. We also have been in governance from 2015 to 2019. That was the only period that we were in governance. But however, if you really take it, this particular regime and their government has been in power from 1994 onwards. So majority of the tenure, majority of the years, SJB or the UNP have not had a president for about a period of 25 years in this country. So the bulk of the fault, I would say, lies within the present administration for their decisions which they have made. But however, I would say politicians in parliament must govern with moral compass. They are at the end of the day elected by the people, for the people. So what happens is when you're in parliament, your interests of safeguarding your party rises above it all. So whether they're actually governing, whether they're actually carrying out the mandate of the people is a question. So if that is the case, when the people who voted for the 17th Amendment voted for the 19th Amendment and again voted for the 20th Amendment. So things like that can't happen if they actually acted with a moral compass. So I would say, you know, it is at the end of the day that when you are sitting in parliament, one must question one's policies and one's integrities and why they are in that particular position also.
Leni, when you look at when you observe the trends, we notice that people are actually responding much quicker. You'll take what happened in 2015, the changing governance.
Yeah.
Within 4 years, Yahapalne was kicked out and this government came to power.
Yeah.
And within a year or 2 years now, we see public is really responding quickly, particularly I suppose it's because of technology and social media and so on. So it seems that the lawmakers, opposition or in government, whoever they may be, is held to account much quicker. People get information faster. Do you all understand the responsibility that is on your shoulders? Does the opposition leader understand that people are growing impatient and they want action, not talk?
Exactly. See, as I said, leaders, when they come to govern, they must say what they can actually do and not overpromise and underdeliver. That's what happened, I think, in 2015. They came with certain promises, but actually they didn't fulfill it, and hence they were ousted. And it's the same situation with the present regime as well. But however, I want to say this, Yahapalana did certain things right by the country and they failed to communicate that also to the people in terms of the policy changes that they made. And you know, in Sri Lanka, how the political narrative is changed, how, you know, media comes into play, how certain individuals come into play, certain organizations come in, and how the political rhetoric is developed and is sold to the people. So we see, if you analyze the psyche of the voter and how the voter decides on their vote is also a question. I mean, we blame at the end of the day, at the end of the day, people get who they deserve, because for what do they vote for? Do they vote for policy? Do they vote for integrity? Do they vote for honest leaders? Or do they vote for their personal gain? I mean, we talk about professionals. A lot of professionals are responsible in bringing this present regime back into power. Didn't they see the corruption that they did prior to 2015? And didn't they also vote to oust them back in 2015? So at the end of the day, people also must question on what basis they vote. I think going forward in this country, a complete overhaul in the politics, to the manner in which we govern, and to the people who govern us, who comes into leadership, or must take all these factors into consideration.
Right.
Because no longer the voter is uneducated. The voter is not uneducated. Social media, this is power. This is power. So people get all the information. So you cannot overpromise and underdeliver. You have to be a leader of integrity, leader of honesty, and leader of virtue, I would say.
You know, I like to add one more here. Now see, the biggest problem in this country, politicians have so much of power. The president, right? When Mahinda Rajapaksa was the president, he took everything there to Hambantota. Maithripala Sirisena, and I am told those in Mirihana gets the vaccination, all that, you know, done first.
And no power cuts. And no
power cuts, right? That's wrong. That is wrong. That system should be changed. Now here, B251. Independent National Planning, Implementation and Monitoring Commission, holistic approach to national development through effective and futuristic resource planning, right? Now, we have described it this way, just a few lines. May I read it?
Yeah, please.
In an effort to redirect the national socio-economic development drive, the 7-decade-long unwieldy, spontaneous, unplanned planning path has soon to be abandoned. A futuristic and professionally managed plan that would reap optimum benefits to the nation, including including all hitherto untapped or undertapped resources, including a 200-mile economic ocean. You know, you always refer to it, right? We have a huge resource base, right? Why don't we make use of all that, right? Will equally be focused under National Master Development Plan strategy. In this direction, an independent national planning, implementation and monitoring commission with extensive powers will be appointed as the sole custodian of the nation's socio-economic strategic planning, development and monitoring in the short, medium, long terms. Manage and monitor policy stability, which is a prerequisite for sustainable growth. Its remit will include, inter alia, development need identification covering all economic and non-economic sectors of the nation in the short term, medium term and long term. Identifying like that it goes on.
So Mr. De Silva, all this is well and good. You can buy these arguments that you're saying. It seems like a very rosy picture, but I don't know how far all these are realistic. However, a couple of years ago, at the 2019 presidential election, Mr. De Silva, you were supporting a candidate openly. Do you remember?
Yeah, definitely. Why not?
Right. Because I thought you may not remember. No. You do remember, right? So the candidate that you supported was Mahesh Siranayaka at the last presidential election. But Mahesh Siranayaka was not even able to garner adequate votes to even show some competition to the main three competitors at a presidential election. So is that what the people want or require?
No. Last election was a fraud, I will tell you straight away without any fear at all, right? I have even repeatedly said Mahinda Deshapriya is a fraud, right? He should not have allowed that because...
are you alleging that there was
you have to take full responsibility?
Just give me because...
So you have to take full responsibility.
I take the full responsibility. I take the full responsibility. Right. Naga has filed the case. I said I would also like to intervene, right? I take the full responsibility. I don't put the blame on you all, on your institution, because I respect your whatever rights, all that, right? That's a leave aside all that. Unfortunate situation is a public officer, like what we discussed, has a role to play, right? He has to take the responsibility for his decisions. Why didn't he do the right thing, and why did he cover up? And he said, what did he cover? What are you accusing him of covering up? The president's citizenship issue, right? President's citizenship issue, right? That was one. And there are other stories I don't want to take up. It was fairly well calculated.
His citizenship.
Pardon?
The president had renounced his citizenship.
No, not renounced. Not renounced, right? It was not
that taken to court, and didn't the courts give a...
No, not yet. It's still pending in courts.
Injunction? Okay.
It's still pending in courts, right? So naturally, I would say it was a fraud, right? In a democracy, those things, in a good democracy, in a strong democracy.
Sri Lanka is a bit different.
Yeah, to a great extent, I agree with you, because this is why we are trying to say
we always find a loophole.
You know, there is a professor in England, Professor Anthony Giddens. He had said, what you really need to do is to democratize the democracies. What is being done is that, basically, right? Democratize the democracy. Ours was a seasoned democracy when we got independence, having got democratic whatever rights, all that in 1931, right? Unfortunately, it went on. Even now, they don't know how to run a democratic government, right? Basic problem is that. Otherwise, they would never have introduced even the 20th Amendment. I mean, it's a shame. I'm ashamed to say that I'm a Sri Lankan now, right? But we are proud still to say I'm a Sri Lankan. We want to change the system. You asked me a question why Mahesh couldn't win it. He couldn't win it because, you know the stories that are there right now, how they manipulated all that, you know, to win the elections, right?
But even
Cardinal Malcolm Peary said this was a plot, right? So this is how the whole thing was.
Yeah, but even after the election was over, Mahesh Siranayaka was not in the equation.
No, there's another story I can't tell you openly. This gentleman had to go.
Had to go the country.
Yeah, had to leave the country.
If not, there was an imminent arrest, like what happened to South Fonseca in 2010?
There were certain things. Now it has settled down because he knows it, right? So this is the thing. In this country,
what do you mean it has settled down?
It has settled down in the sense, if that was the case, they would have even...
They have come to a deal?
No, not come to a deal.
Then what have they come?
They will not do that. We are sure.
So that's a deal?
It's not a deal. It's not a deal.
We don't want to talk about deals.
No, now see, there was a period, anybody, they couldn't protest, right? Priests were taken by force, I mean, that was not the way it should be done. So,
but Iran didn't know that.
I think so. I don't know.
There was a time in Sri Lanka, people forget a lot.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, so Lihini, looking at the future, now Mr. De Silva, who has been in the parliamentary service for many years, who was a very successful, very qualified civil servant, is of the opinion that all of the 225 members in parliament who have been coming in, coming out, going in over the last few years are responsible to this mess. So if that case be the scenario, now individuals like you, Mr. De Silva is of the opinion that individuals like you need to come to parliament. But what do you think about women representation, giving nominations to women by political parties right now? Would that happen in the long run?
Good question. Thank you for asking that. I was also at a webinar before I came here, organized by the Samagi Taruna Balavege on women representation in politics, where we discussed extensively. So women needs to take center stage, no doubt about it. We are 52% of the population. My opinion is at least for a parliament must have 40% of women. And it is not a question of whether women should be given nominations. It is a given. And I think, all party politics, everybody and women need to come into, if they have to come to the road, they have to come to the road and demand from political parties, say, give us nominations. Because, our rights are not represented. I want to say this, women not just lead by their mind, but they lead by their hearts. And they have a holistic perspective when it comes to problems. They are able to view it not with a tunnel vision. I would say, even in the present economic situation, if this crisis, if a woman was leading, we wouldn't, even the COVID situation, if a woman was leading.
We've had women lead in the country. And those times were very dire.
See, that is a different situation. No, that is a different situation. We are talking about women duly elected, women. That is legacy coming forward. We are saying, bring in women to the system, more women. Not political dynasties.
We've had women running the country also at one point.
Yeah, look at countries like, Rwanda and even the Indian. And
you don't want people telling you, calm down. We're trying to make a point.
So anyway, going forward, as we celebrate we celebrated Women's Day, we need to, talk about more women leadership. And political parties must create that center stage for women.
Right.
And it is important.
Right. So,
I like to add this also. We have added every public servant, whether it is members of parliament, there should be 7 principles of public life, right? Selflessness, objectivity, I can explain all those. Openness, leadership, integrity, accountability, honesty. Without these qualities, there is no need at all, having a parliament like now.
And I want to say that, if there were more women in parliament today, this situation would not be.
But even recently we saw Hirunuka Premachandra going to the president's house in Miriyana, and subsequently there was a protest stage opposite her house in Malabe. Yeah. And this protest, if you noticed it, Lihini, was championed by another woman.
See,
so women are not for women, no?
There is also that women don't vote. If we are 52% of the population, then women must vote for women. So there's, it's not just about, there needs to be social education, why women need to take center stage. So the women, there needs to be active campaigning, talking about it, all of that. So it's not like these things will happen overnight, but the discussion needs to come in. At least we have 23% local government. which is, I think, a considerable step in Sri Lankan politics. And I think that
And that is how individuals like you came to the limelight.
So I think, 25% needs to be extended to parliament, provincial councils, at least for 2 terms. And I'm not saying that that quota needs to continue forever, but at least as a start. National list, bring in women, make say out of at least 50% of the national list, make it women. Bring in educated women of different diverse backgrounds, different disciplines of schools of thought to leadership. This is how a country will prosper, not political elites
But
and their
when I
cronies.
noticed the last election, how the nationalist seats were selected, due recognition was given by political parties to appoint at least 1 or 2 women through their national list to the parliament. However, the only political party that failed to do that was the Tamil National Alliance. They had the former Human Rights Commissioner Ambika Satkurunathan on the top of the list in the TNA Parliamentary National List. However, she was opted out and a man was selected. So in a situation like that, do you think even the Tamil political parties in Sri Lanka would champion this cause of women coming to the limelight?
See, again, as I said, there needs to be more social discourse, more conversation about it. It has to be a societal requirement, talking about it and pushing for political parties. Because change doesn't happen easily unless there is pressure, unless there is internal party pressure, it doesn't happen. So at least these type of conversations are good. And the more the conversations, more we highlight this, there is hope.
There is hope. And
Hopeful.
So, Mr. De Silva, in your remarks, you mentioned about an alternative. Now, there are discussions about the NPP as a possible alternative. We should not forget what happened in the late 1980s in Sri Lanka. This is still embedded in the mindset of the people in the country as to what happened, the insurrection that took place, where 60,000 people died as a result of the insurrection at that time. Do you think that the NPP will have a better grip at this election?
I would like to look at that issue in a different way, right? Why did they take up arms, right? And they took up arms in 1971 for the first time, because even during that period, slow growth, unemployment, all that, right? In 89, the same problem. Why did even LTT take up arms? There were demands. I was the head of the section, secretary, this Northeast Select Committee. That was under Mangal Munasinghe in 90s, right? We were working so very hard thinking that we'll be able to find a solution. Unfortunately, what happened? We couldn't, because politicians never wanted to settle it in a way that was acceptable to the masses. So what I am trying to say, politicians should be left alone altogether in the future. Let them enact laws,
right,
approve policies, right, and there are other things.
No, but you did not answer my question. Do you think NPP can be a
Yeah, I wanted to say it that
alternative?
way. NPP also has not come out with their policies, and they say they will also do it, but they don't know, they have not said how they are going to do that.
But isn't that the case even with the SJB as well?
No.
We have experience in governing. We are not all about
SJB,
policies. We are not all about policies like the NPP. We have experience in governing.
I'm sorry.
That is the difference.
Whether you have experience in governing, actually.
I don't want anyone else walking out.
but see, this is the question, because the SJB is so keen to disassociate itself from the UNP, and you keep saying we are a new party, we are a new party. If you're a new party, how can you have experience in governing? Isn't that experience coming from the Heritage Party?
No, but Mr. Silva, my question to you on a very serious note.
So actually, even the JVP apparently going around and canvassing, probably people have no alternative. Because of that, they say, okay, we are, right? But before that, I think all sensible young people must come together. I think they should consider a proposal like this. I have given to so many. This is not going to be ours. We want to make it a public property, and if possible, I want to send it to all the districts and let them study right? If somebody can take it over, study and then push it through. I mean, let me say it this way, please, right? There should be governance reforms, serious governance reforms, not for the sake of doing it, right? Not tinkering or that kind of things. If this could be done, let them also come up with other sort of amendments or, you know, suggestions, all that.
So on that note, Mr. De Silva, you are saying that we as Sri Lankans, we as Sri Lanka, are we right now in a crisis?
We are in a serious governance crisis.
Governance crisis.
Governance crisis. We really need a solution, and we can't allow this country to, you know, go further down.
So if this government continues
No,
in its tenure,
this is why I said specifically,
what happens next?
None of these politicians, because I have given it to a number of politicians.
But Mr. De Silva, the Constitution very clearly articulates that this government in power will stay on until otherwise dissolved after 4 years. The president will remain for 5 years. So if that is the case, what is the future?
Whether they are, you know, you never know what's going to happen, right? We can't predict that. There were even much stronger governments eventually, you know, had to sort of step down, and there were issues, right? So what I'm trying to tell you, the biggest problem right now, even Gotabe or Mahinda Rajapaksa doesn't know what next. Even for people, it's a very serious situation. They are going through a lot of hardships. I would say all those were creations, particularly after ending the war, right? Bad management, mishandling economy, mishandling, I would say mishandling the entire thing. There was no governance whatsoever.
Do you blame Maithripala Sirisena also? Because he
I
was
blame Maithripala. I have to tell the truth now, you know. Why? What was the mandate given to them? The mandate given to them was to deal with the corrupt system, right? Actually, I don't mind I was thrown out, but if we were not thrown out, most of these people would have been in jail, right?
And today the country situation would have been even better.
Even better.
Right. Thank you very much, the gentleman and the lady. We're going for a short commercial break. Stay connected, stay with Face the Nation. We will be right back. When we come back, it's the final round. Stay connected with us. We will be right back.
COVID-19 සඳහා ආරක්ෂිත පියවර. නිතරම හොඳින් සබන් යොදා දෑත් සෝදන්න. සබන් හෝ විසබීජ නාශක මධ්‍යසාරයක් භාවිතා කර දෑත් පිරිසිදු කරන්න. සැම විටම අන් අය සමග මීටරයක දුරස්ථභාවයක් පවත්වා ගන්න. හැකි සෑම විටම නිවසේ රැඳී සිටින්න. නිරතුරුවම නිවැරදිව මුඛාවරණ පළඳින්න.
තනිව යන්න බෑයි කියන කාරණේද අධ්‍යාපනයේදී
මම කියන්නේ ප්‍රධාන වශයෙන් සිදු වෙන දේ.
අපිට රුසියානු සපත්තුව මේ ලංකාවට දාන්න බෑ, ඒක ලොකුයි. චීන සපත්තුව සීන සමාජවාදී ඒකත් හරියන්නේ නැහැ. ඒක මේ කකුලට පොඩි. අපි අපේම සපත්තුව මහ ගන්න ඕනේ කියලා.
එක්සත් ජාතීන්ගේ මානව හිමිකම් කවුන්සිලය කියලා කියන්නේ මානව හිමිකම් පිළිබඳව ලෝක පාර්ලිමේන්තුව.
අපි පරිසරය ගැන දෙකක් තිබුණා.
මම ඉස්කෝලේ යන කාලෙත් මේක තුන්වන ලෝකේ රටක්. දැන් මම මැරෙන්න යන කාලෙදිත් තුන්වන ලෝකේ රටක්.
ආණ්ඩුව රූපාන්තරණය වෙනවා රාජ්‍ය බවට.
එත දෙකේ එත පහේදී තමයි මේ වතු ඔක්කොම නැෂනලයිස් කරේ.
එහෙමයි ධර්මශ්‍රී, රට ගැන විතරක් නෙමෙයි මම ගැනත් මම බය වෙලා ඉන්නේ.
අපනයන කවුද කරන්නේ? කවුද විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයට ගියද? නෑ. කවුද අපේ ව්‍යාපාර කරන්නේ? විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයට ගියද? නෑ.
The hand that rocks the cradle is the hand that rules the world.
Don't be daunted by it, as daunting as it seems that, you know, there are barriers.
As we all do our part to break the bias in celebration of the International Women's Day.
If we respect, I think we will get respect back.
Their thinking is revolutionary, but is your bias blocking you from listening to them.
Public relations is a huge market in India. It's a huge market in Singapore.
Women form over 50% of the Sri Lankan population and over 60% of our total graduates.
Whatever is given to you, learn everything, get your education and thrive.
Join me in Biznomics as we bring to you 8 episodes featuring trailblazing women in their chosen industries. Biznomics, every Saturday and Sunday at 5 p.m.
Very good, very good. Stand by. Welcome back. This is Face the Nation. We are in the final round. When we started the show, we had 3 members. Now we are down to 2. So let's start off the final round with Lessel De Silva, former Secretary of Presifac, Presidential Commission to investigate serious acts of fraud and corruption. What is the way forward, Mr. De Silva? You gave a lot of advice, but what is the way forward ultimately? In the eyes of the public, what is the message you have for them?
What did people expect in 2015, in 1994, you know, during various elections, right? They wanted the system cleaned up. Now, did they do that? Even in 2019, Gotabaya, say, had a lot of promises. Did they do that? I think what people want right now, people don't know whether it is governance or you know what else basically. Actually, people want the system cleaned up. That is what people want, and I think even at the next elections, people want it. But for that purpose, as I said, you know, I can't expect anything from the present lot, in the sense those 225 in Parliament. That is the very reason even in 2015 we wanted to bring an outsider totally. If at least that was successful, I think things could have been a lot better. It failed. I think next time, without fail, somehow we have to ensure that, you know, the corrupt, say, incapable, you know, I have a lot more to say, but this system should be changed with the whole lot together.
All of them should go home.
That's my thinking, really.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. De Silva. Attorney at Law, Lihini Fernando. Lihini, tomorrow's protest organized by the SJB, would it just be another protest to show the might of the SJB, or would it really have some substance? Because we saw when the 52-day government happened, Ranjan Ramanayaka came and was very vocal about the situation back then. Today, fortunately or unfortunately, the Member of Parliament is now imprisoned. So tomorrow's protest, who will it be?
I think it's, I want to say it's not just a SJB protest, but it should be a citizens' march. And I request all public to come and to show express their displeasure, because this is not the manner in which how this country should be run. We all deserve to live in dignity. We all deserve to live like respectful citizens. Our basics need to be provided. We don't want to live with 7.5-hour power cuts and being in queues to get our basics like gas, milk powder. I mean, and medicine and children's education, people's lives are coming to a standstill. So what SJB is trying to do is bring out a strong message, give out a strong message to the government that they need to govern with responsibility, that they need to listen to professionals and act with authority, act with responsibility. I mean, their strategies, even though they believe are not the right ones, it has not paved way for Sri Lanka in the right direction. You cannot, I mean, repeatedly everybody has been telling them to restructure the debt, but they have not been taking it into consideration. Go to the IMF, everything is delayed. At the end of the day, people are suffering. Though they expect, you know, tourism to pick up, but this is all a circle. And I mean, there are countries that are giving warnings saying not to come to Sri Lanka. And look at our credit ratings. We are CAA1 and it has gone down further. Investors are not coming in without having confidence on the country. And look at our human rights situation, look at our law and order. We have completely failed. So we need to resurrect this country, and the government needs to act responsibly, and hence they have 2/3, and we want to question the government, and that is the whole idea of tomorrow's protest. And Honorable Sajith Premadasa will take the lead, and he has acted as a responsible opposition leader. In an event he is in power, he too will act as a responsible leader.
For those who say and think like people who are like-minded like Lassell De Silva, this is enough. Politicians have ruined our country. Today these long queues, today these issues with regard to the cost of living is all because of politicians. What is the message you have for those people, Leni, who are watching the show tonight? Why must they still place their trust on politicians anymore?
See, it is a very absolute statement that Mr. Lassell De Silva made, but then within this 225 there are honest, there are good people who govern, who speak with dignity, who can act responsibly. So I think it is up to the people to elect the right people, vote for the right people, and also demand political parties to give nominations to the right people. If right people are not being given nominations, then you will obviously end up getting. It is not about voting in the popularist person or the person who distributes the most. It's not about welfare politics. What is the role of a parliamentarian? What is the role of a politician? We need to question these things, and it is time.
Thank you very much, Leni Fernando. SJB councillor from the Murray Municipal Council. Leni is also an attorney at law. Thank you very much, Mr. Lassell De Silva, former secretary to Presifac, has a lot of experience in the parliament as well. Now fully retired, I think, Mr. De Silva.
Fully retired.
If offered a job, would you join the ranks of the government?
We are busy doing this kind of things because we want to see the countries on the right track.
Right. So we also invited at the beginning of the show, and who accepted our invitation, Iran the Guinea, advisor to the president. He left the show in between because of reasons best known to him. Probably he could not face the nation. Having said that, thank you very much, Nadeem. Thank you very much, Shehan, for joining us tonight as journalists on the show. I leave you tonight with a quote, as I always do. The first rule of management is delegation. Don't try and do everything yourself, because you just can't. Take care and good night.